man, we're excited about the All-Star break, and we have a chance to look back at what's happened this season. Last year we had this draft, and now we've gotten to see some of the players, and we want to take a big picture look and say, what have we seen from the guys that we've seen this year?
Yeah, man. What do we always say about rookies, man? Every single year we say we know what a rookie will be like in February, March, and April, when defenses have found ways to stop them. And guess what? We're watching one of the emergence of maybe one of the best rookies we've seen in a while, JDub, that has been rising through the ranks like crazy recently. And we're watching these other guys like Paolo and Methuen, who have been dominant all season, really struggle in February. And it has everything to do with teams understanding how to play them in defense and teams not understanding how to play JDub. And that's why we're looking at it. And we actually have, all the stats to prove so. Look at the last 10, 15 games of their careers. You can see it. The statistics are going down. You see the emergence of JDub, and that is why we're both here excited about this, is because JDub is the reason. And we didn't put Chet on this. We want to make that really clear. We didn't put Chet on this because we're talking about rookies that have played this year, not next year when Chet's going to be a rookie, but we're talking about redrafting the rookies that have played this year.
Right, and we can make an argument for Chet that we would still draft him number one, irregardless of the injury or how well Paulo or some of these other guys have played. We still feel like he's a generational talent on defense. The way that he changes the game immediately on that end is so important for a team like the Thunder. But then on offense, stretching the court, and all the different things he can do with the ball in his hand, getting on the floor, attacking downhill. He's an elite player, someone that the NBA really hasn't ever seen before. And we believe he's going to change the game. But we really only have the players who have been playing, to really rank with what they've been doing. So with that said, for me, I look at a player like Paulo. He got off to a fast start. Like you're saying, over the last 10 games, his average has gone down. Same with Mathurin. And we've seen, you mentioned, JDub kind of emerge into the player that they kind of appeared to be at the beginning of the season before defenses figured them out. So Jaylin Williams from Santa Clara is the guy I have at number 2. I think season.
Let's go, if you don't mind, go through your top 4 players. Yeah.
So I go Paulo, JDub, Mathurin, and Keegan Murray. Those are my top 4. What are your top 4?
Yeah, man. I know this is going to shock everybody, but I want to make this clear, is that already JDub has shown me enough. And watching the fact that Paulo shot 3.7% from 3-point range in the last 10, 15 games, whatever it is, I have to say is, in my opinion, JDub has not only passed Paulo, but also passed Methuen on my list. I would pick JDub at this point number 1. I would also go with Methuen number 2, Pablo number 3, and then I would go Jaden Ivey, bringing up that rear at number 4 right now, because he has proven to me that he's a special type of guard, and I don't think the Houston Rockets would pass on Jaden Ivey with a second chance.
Okay. That's really interesting. So you think JDub has already emerged as the best player from this rookie class?
I think what he has proven he can do when the defenses has changed to try to stop him, and he continuously getting better, and the stats getting better, and as these other guys are falling, and that's what they're doing, they're falling. You could say that Pablo is a generational player, that he could score a lot, but listen, the NBA is changing, okay? More so than ever before, because we're an offensive-driven league that is really reaching out to make sure that we get defensive-minded players. And if you're looking at these guys and you're saying, oh, well, he's good on offense, but his defense needs help, whatever, it's already too late for those guys. That's why JDub, in my opinion, has to be considered one of 2 guys you would redraft as number 1.
Dude, I wrote down Pablo on my list. It must have auto-corrected it, but it is Paulo. I just somehow wrote that down and sent it to you.
I like Pablo more, man.
I know, but I get it. But he probably would, prefer us call him by his name.
Fine, okay.
Whatever. So who cares? I think he'd be more upset with the fact that you have moved him to number 3 on the overall redraft list.
Man, listen, I'll be honest with you. I really struggled at this because I almost put Jaden Ivey ahead of him.
Really?
I really did. Jaden Ivey to me is one of those special guards, man, and you see it, and a lot of people are recognizing it right now, and Detroit got a special guy with him. So again,
what I've seen from Paulo, though, I think he has a chance in 3 years to be like a true point forward in the way that, like, maybe not getting out and running like LeBron, but he's probably more deadly in the half court, like with his jumper, than a lot of guys we've seen.
Paolo has more upside on defense, but we've seen what happens when you have an offensive-minded big man out there, a big body out there that's purely about offense. Like, it used to work 5-6 years ago, you know? Like, the way the NBA is changing now, these are the type of guys that you say, oh, yeah, they got a long longevity in the league. But the reality is that you need a guy, you know, like Jalen Williams. And one day when we look back, I think Jaylin Williams has a better chance at being in the top 5 than Paolo does in 7-8 years down the road.
All right. I mean, giving Mathurin, like you gave Mathurin the skip over Paolo, that also makes me kind of like a little bit. I could see, for me, JDub, when I look at him, I'm like, okay, in 5 years, he probably does have a chance to be the best player from this draft. But is he now?
Why would I pick Mathurin over Paolo? Defense, man.
All right.
Defense. Like this is why I keep going back to it over and over again. We don't want fucking James Harden's out in the league anymore. We want defensive-minded guys. When you have guys that are playing both ends really, really hard constantly, and that's what you get with Mathurin. I'm serious, guys. There's a difference, and you can see it when you start recognizing where the league is going, what type of players have what it takes to stay longevity. Like, it's all about that. How many times have we looked back and we've done the redraft, and it's like, okay, this player would go top 5, and then 2 years down the road, like he's nowhere on the top 40. Right. You know, it's because the league is constantly changing, and so that's what the league's changing to. Is offensive-minded teams that play defense hard. And if you can't play defense, you don't have any place. You just don't. And if you can't play defense at a high caliber, there's so many guys that can score 30 points a game. It doesn't matter. Like, what you need to be able to do is stand out in a high offensive way and a defensive way. And that's when we're looking back and we're saying Mathurin and JDub and Jaden Ivey, you know, like these guys, they get it. They're playing that both sides of the ball. And to me, that's what stands out.
All right, man. All right. So there's some good ones in here. There's some good ones in here. So I think right here, both of us agree on something.
Guys. I'm not crazy.
We both have Jabari listed at number 5.
Yes, we do, actually. That's crazy.
I think that's a really interesting take. I go for Jaden Ivey at number 6. Who do you go for at number 6?
I went with Keegan at number 6. I as much as I think Keegan deserves a little bit more respect, I just think that with recognizing who's on the board, I think Keegan goes number 6 redraft.
All right. So once again, we're back at a place where we both agree with Shaedon Sharpe, which is also, by the way, I think where he was actually drafted at number 7 here.
That's why I don't think he gets moved off of there.
Right. I feel like even though there's other players who have been playing better throughout the year, like the next guy for me is Walker Kessler at number 8. He's been playing better, but I don't think Portland would take Kessler over someone who, you know, is as athletic and as dynamic of an athlete as Shaedon. Who do you got there at number 8?
Dude, I went with Shohan, dude.
Really?
Again, another defensive-minded guy that can play both sides of the ball. To me, I get it. Some people are like, oh, that's a little bit of a stretch. But is it, though? Like, would you redraft him at, like, number 10 or whatever? But no, it's not to me, because at number 8, like, the things that he's shown in San Antonio, man, I got to say is that, I mean, you might even see a team like Blazers drafted at number 7 instead of
I don't think so.
Because to me,
you need to have offensive. You need to have offensive potential. Like, you really do, I think, to be drafted that high. Personally, I have Sohan fallen all the way down number 14. So right at the edge of the lottery, right at the end of it.
And I understand that, and that's probably what most people have. But I see something special with Shohan, how he's able to play, how he gets up the court, how he shuts down people. Like, people, they're not calling him the second coming of Dennis Rodman for no reason.
Well, I mean, he's kind of embracing that. He looks a little undersized to be a full-blown Dennis Rodman, but I think over time he can, develop into a defensive impact player. But, there's just something about Rodman's size and athleticism was really what led to so many rebounds and his physicality.
Sure.
And it would be great if he did develop to that, then, I mean, I think you argue that he might even be drafted in the redraft higher than where you have him. But at right now, I feel like I have so many questions about his offensive game. So we'll leave that there.
You can tell I'm leaning towards the defensive-minded guys on this one.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey, that's cool, man. So at number 9, I have Jalen Duran. I think he's, shown that he can play at the NBA. A lot of people knew he's athletic, but the question was, would he be able to jump in? And he's already doing that. Some people would probably have him redrafted a little bit higher. Who do you have at 9?
Man, I went with Dyson Daniels. He's shown his playmaking abilities. I struggled at Shohan and Dyson Daniels here, which one I would put ahead of the other. But I really look at Dyson Daniels and the way he's able to, control the ball, control the dribble, get to the hoop, his size. There's so many things that are beautiful about Dyson Daniels' game that it really, for the Pelicans, and they're so deep, he's just not going to get a lot of breath out there. So that's why, for me, I look at Dyson Daniels as the next player I would go with in this list.
All right, man.
But then I have Walker Kessler, by the way, after that. Okay, cool. So, I mean, yeah, there's an argument, once again, about his defense and everything like that. But so Walker Kessler for you is what, at number 9, I believe? 10.
So number 10?
It's 10, actually. Yeah,
okay,
10.
Cool. For me, number 10 is Jaylin Williams from Arkansas.
Wow. Nice.
I think he's shown... it's one thing to be out there and be blocking a lot of shots, and it's another thing to be able to patrol the paint and take charges. But in the end, you end up with a very similar effect of a defensive stopper. So he's already shown defensive aptitude. Now, over the last half of the season, he's shown the ability to knock down the three, and he's shown the ability to pass the ball. So in the end, you've got someone who can use his size to defend, and he knows how to use the rules to make sure he has an advantage. And then he can knock down shots from the perimeter. You don't really see a lot of these guys at 6'10" coming to the league ready for these types of things. It's easy to project for me at this point with what he's shown, easy a 10-year career, right? Because it's not predicated on athleticism. And I think over time, we'll probably see him continue to move up this list, maybe over time into the top, 8, top 6, top 5, just because overall longevity. There's with Paulo, there's a lot to be said about his offensive dynamic ability, but let's just say for Jaylin Williams, he might not be as bad. He might not compare terribly to Paulo in the when we look back 10 years later. But right now, people wouldn't put them in the same class necessarily. But it's about trajectory, it's about the pathway, and ultimately, he's shown a better opportunity to shoot the three, which is a much more desired effect than the long two, which is Paulo's specialty. And if you can defend already at a high level, maybe it's not crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think, I think you're on the right path with JWill there. I had him a little bit further down on my list, but I want to echo a lot of things that you said. If you're looking at these talented players, for me, I look at Duran and Jalen Williams, in my opinion, as two guys that in a redraft would go side by side. And the reason is because the way that JWill consistently plays out there, his heart, his knowledge of the game, he's what I call, it's something that Mark and I have discussed before, but what we've talked about and considered is that JWill is the best kept secret in Oklahoma City. And no list you'll ever see will JWill make the top 15 in the redraft right now. And the reason is because he's not getting enough playing time and he's not doing this. But to us that are watching the games, that are understanding what he is capable of doing, it's a whole new point of view. And that's why, when I'm going down my list, I have AJ Griffin at number 10, Duran at 11, JWill at 13 there. And I want to say, the reason I believe JWill would be drafted right after Duran at 13 is because what he's consistently showed. There was last night or 2 nights ago when they played, Mark, right? There was 5 possessions that he controlled, got defensive stops or scored or got an offensive rebound, and it was so insane. It was bang, bang, bang. And then you recognize he's an integral part of the entire offense. He's an intricate part of the defense. He's an intricate part about the rebounding and the offensive rebounds and all these things that he's able to do. And then you recognize that he's not, as we say, a one-trick pony, man. He's got so many like amazing things that he can do consistently, constantly. And it's mind-boggling because here we are redrafting, and we're looking at players that are two-way players as the most valuable players. And he's, again, showing what's so valuable about that. I mean, he's shooting nearly 50% from three-point range, guys. Like, he's truly playing unbelievable right now. And it's shocking that there's not a lot more love, but it's understandable because, you know, he's Oklahoma's best-kept secret.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and run through my 11, 12, 13th, and 14th. So it goes AJ Griffin, Dyson Daniels, Ousmane Dieng, and then, like I already mentioned, Sohan at 14. Dieng at 13, I think you're still basing it based on potential, but he's already grown, to me, much more than what we knew at the draft. So you have to do work to stay on this list. You can't just show up and be on potential. I know he's been hurt, but the injuries, none of the ones he's had have been ligaments or anything like that. No structural issues. He's shown the ability to knock down the three and to defend. Once he's keyed back into where he was before he, I think, broke his thumb, then we're going to be looking at a player who is 6'10", has aggression, can get downhill, and I think he's still 19 years old. So he's learning at an incredible rate. So, still basing it on potential, but that potential is still overwhelming.
I like it. I left him off my list, and I want to clarify why I left him off my list. Is that at this point, being that he is injured and being that he is a project for what I consider Sam Presti, I look at Dieng as one of those guys is that in 2 years when we redraft, he's going to be a top 7 pick. But right now, because of the injury, I think it's hurt him in the aspect of the redraft. And would he get drafted at 13, 14, or 15? Yes, he would. Absolutely. He would not get past 16 or 17. And no draft would he ever be past that. But the reality is that, at this point, being injured and being the fact that with the limited minutes he's played in the NBA.
Okay.
We have to go off of G League.
No, we don't. We've seen enough actual minutes in the NBA to know that he's an NBA player. When he was in the draft process, bro.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying he's not.
Right, but think about what we knew about him in the draft process. Like in the NBL, right? Like he struggled at the first, and then he started coming on, but it was can he do this in the NBA? And then we saw him in the summer league kind of struggle, but then he came into the league and within a few weeks was able to start scoring some buckets and get things going the way he wants. So yeah, he's had setbacks, but we know a lot more about him now than we did before the draft. So
sure,
he has been injured, but I wouldn't say that injuries are the defining part of the season. To me, the defining part of the season is the progress.
Again, this is not a slap on him. Him dropping back 5 places in the draft or 4 places in the draft at this point in his career is not a slap because that's not, what I'm going for. It's more just basically saying, for me, I look at this list as there's 13 players on this list that I truly feel have separated themselves,
Right, and I agree. And I'll say this.
And that's...
I'm probably giving Dieng extra credit just because he was drafted by the Thunder, right? Because you have to, say their track record lends yourself
Absolutely.
To say, you're saying, he'll probably move up into the top 7 in the future because the story's not written on him. But you can see glimpses to know that it's this is not common to find a player with his size and skill set at his age.
Yeah, and again, when I said, knowing that there's Victor coming in the draft next year, that I felt like Dieng is the future of French basketball. I truly believe that. I look at him and I see what he's capable of doing, and I'm like, if Victor comes in and he's able to dominate the NBA, he's able to dominate basketball with what I would consider about college level athletes, maybe he can. And if he does, then obviously Victor will be the face. But I know what Dieng can do and know what he can do. And he's so talented and he's so good. I look at it and if there is one player that was drafted in the top 12 that nobody would give a possibility of scoring 20 points a game, that would be Dieng. And I would say that everybody else would be like, oh, he could be a possibility. But Dieng, everybody's like, eh. My point is that that's what I think about him is I feel like he could score 20 points a game. I feel like he can create that massive mismatch, and because he takes time to develop, he's not going to be as expensive as some of the other guys that we're going to end up having to pay.
Right. And ultimately, when you look at it, you have to ask yourself the question, would Sam Presti do anything different in the draft? And I think it's pretty apparent, like, that for us, we're looking at it and we feel like we came away with 4 lottery picks. The number 1 talented player from the draft, the number 1 player this year, according to you, and for me, the number 2.
He has to. He has to be, guys. Come on. Like, I understand that people aren't going to respect that, but it's JDub, and he's dominating the NBA at a level that we haven't seen by a rookie in a long time.
We've seen JWill sneak in to us into the lottery, and for me, and for you almost, but for me, Dieng show enough that he still belongs in that lottery. I think Presti would still pick him right at the same spot because his talent is still overwhelming. There's no doubt that in the long run, this guy is going to be a problem for years to come. But Dave, I'm pumped up. I love this shit, man. I'm glad that we took the time to do this. I hope everybody enjoys their All-Star break, and we will be back after the game, and we'll see you then.